Our invocation, Funeral by Rupi Kaur, Canadian poet, illustrator, author, born in the Punjab, India, immigrated to Canada as a child with her family. When I go from this place, dress the porch with garlands, as you would for a wedding day, my dear. Pull the people from their homes and dance in the streets. When death arrives like a bride at the aisle, send me off in my brightest clothing. Serve ice cream with rose petals to our guests. There is no reason to cry, my dear. I have waited my whole life for such a beauty to take my breath away. When I go, let it be a celebration, for I have been here. I have lived. I have won at this game called life. Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge. We are humbled and honored to be hosting this celebration of life service for Foy Lavelle Lowe Jr. As many of you well know, this was and has been Foy and Gloria Bachrath's religious home for many, many years. My name is Reverend Chris Long, and I have the privilege to be the minister of congregational life here at this church. Knowing that some of you may not be familiar with Unitarian Universalism or this church, we are a church rooted in theologies dating back as early as the 1560s, where we believe in the oneness of God, however you may define it or not. For us, this is Unitarianism. We hold the belief that all souls are saved. This, for us, is universalism. Turn it down just a little bit, please, Brian. Here in this church, there is no belief requirements, but we do have expectations to be a member, and that you be on your own path of seeking truth, the holy, and meaning of life's most complicated questions. Our communal ritual is the lighting of the chalice. Its symbol recognizes the light and all of that is divine in each and all of us, and in the light and beauty of our beautiful yet aching planet Earth. Gloria has invited Nathan, one of Foy's grandchildren, forward to light our chalice. Additionally, we'd now like to invite you, if you will, to join in our chalice lighting words that will be projected on the walls and in your order of service. These words: with hope to make this a better world, we light this flame. Its light is a symbol of the power of love. Gloria, the rest of the family, and I again welcome you to this celebration of life service, honoring the life and living of Foy Lavelle Lowe Jr. I now invite members of the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge Choir forward, some of our members who will sing our anthem. Farewell, My Friends by Rabindranath Tagore. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the heavy with sleep, ever wet eyes. The smile, in spite of a lump in the throat, and the strings pulling at the heart and the soul. The strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. Each morsel that I was fed with was full of love divine. At every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me, even when the time raced by. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, think of me, for that's what I'd like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember then, you never die. Friends and, let me make sure I'm in the right place. Friends and family, we are here to celebrate the life and living of Foy Lavelle Lowe Jr. Born on March 8, 1941, Foy's physical being passed away on December 2nd, 2022. With me being relatively new to this church and community, I did not get a chance to meet Foy personally, but I have spent the last many weeks over several phone calls and emails with Gloria as we started to plan this celebration. I did get a great sense of what his passing has meant for her, for his family, several of his longtime friends, members and friends of this church, and for many of you. Through my phone conversations and emails with Gloria from her home in Southern California, I have been able to take a humbling, deeper look into their lives together from the start of their seeing each other as friends for almost 5 years, through their courtship many years ago, and through their many years of marriage, 38 years to be exact. Before and over that time, through Gloria's sharing, and from some of the sharing gifted to me by some of you, there are a few stories shared of Foy I would like to bring to bear here, many of which can only capture a glimpse of the entirety of his life. It was shared with me several times. Foy lived with deep curiosity for many things in his life and in many of his friendships he developed over the years. I hear he was brilliant, somewhat mischievous. What continued to rise to the surface was he held a love of travel, the theater, music, dancing, creating joy for himself and for many others. It's also true he often played devil's advocate and was subtle and funny often when he did this. Foy was not a joiner. Foy was an atheist, an actor, composer of music, poet, longtime member of the Poetry Alliance, and he loved to play bridge. Here at this church, he was in the choir, involved in the madrigal theater put on here at the church for several stewardship campaigns. I hear he had a fancy for wonderful hats. Foy's first profession was as a math teacher, which I heard just yesterday he absolutely hated. This would lead him to go on to Tulane Law School to become the lawyer he was throughout the remainder of his professional life. As a poet, And an important part of Foy's legacy here in Baton Rouge is his contribution of a poem submitted to be included in a mural dedicated to the Baton Rouge 1953 bus boycott. His contributions to the Walls Project, let's say that again, to the Walls Project Word Stories in Baton Rouge in 2016 after the murder of Alton Sterling. Here is the 10-word poem he gifted Baton Rouge and the world. He wrote, "Baton Rouge, first well done fuss over a fair bus." These words still adorn a mural here in Baton Rouge at 1779 Government Street. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the Baton Rouge boycott. As some of you may well know, Foy was diagnosed with frontotemporal degeneration dementia in 2012. But as Gloria shared, his symptoms started maybe as early as 2010. Throughout his living with dementia for 13 years, Gloria and other family members and friends, and many of his closest friends, cared for him throughout the ups and downs that came with this form of dementia. As noted, he and the family shared a great love of travel. So much so, the family had been planning their last cruise to Alaska this summer. But the decision was made to move the trip to the end of October of last year, mere weeks before Floyd would die. Gloria shared that Foy had a great time on this cruise. Yes, he had dementia for many years, but what would end his life would be complications related to ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. As many of you know, he would die December 2nd of 2022. As we are here to celebrate Foy's life and living, we now have 2 family members and 2 longtime church members and friends who are friends to share eulogies as we honor the life well lived. I would like to invite his brother, Reverend Charles Foy, his, is it eldest brother? Younger brother forward. Yes, he is the younger brother, and he reminded me that Foy was way older. Forward to share his remarks. Reverend Charles, would you please come forward?
Thank you, Reverend. God bless you. Thank you. It is nice in a way to see everyone. It's not often we get to see them, but it's a sober event for me. I was a much younger brother to my brother Foy. It was a whole 18 months. I'm only a little over 80, not a whole lot, but somewhat. Foy was born at an early age, and he did have a sense of humor. March the 8th, 1941, in Fox Hospital, Bastrop, Louisiana, is where he was born. His mother and his father separated when Foy was about 2 years old. And mother went off to a little place in Dermont, Arkansas, in the south portion, where she raised Foy and me. Dad went off to World War II, came back, and mother was a single mom, and dad was another place. And dad remarried. We have some wonderful brothers and a sister, and they're in here somewhere. I can't see them right now, but I know they're here. Foy became a little bit older, and I have a cousin, Dr. Daniel Chrisman, that they call Wimpy because he liked hamburgers. And he was a doctor, a medical doctor, and when he was young, he had Foy and watched him, and Foy was rocking in his little rocking chair, and he was in trouble, a lot of trouble, because I don't know what he did. He probably smiled the wrong way or something. Our mother was a very rigid person, and Foy, being raised in and around the church, started singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong, they are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me." I don't sing very well, but anyway, you get the idea. We lived with several relatives, Foy did, while growing up all over in about a block area. Not very, very far. We had close friends, and one of the pictures that was up here earlier was of some boys on a train, I think, as youths. There were about 5 of those boys, and all of those boys except one became attorneys. One of those was a professional football player before he became an attorney. He played for the Buffalo Bills. But anyway, Foy was raised in and around the church, very close like I was, and all of our friends went to the same place. Foy made a profession of faith at an early age and was baptized and the whole bit. Mother remarried December the 25th, 1951, and gave 2 little boys a wonderful Christmas present. We got us a daddy after all. Hadn't had one in a long time. We moved to France about 3 years because my new stepdaddy was a career military man. And we went to France for 3 years where Foy excelled. He started blooming, budding out, and his intelligence really started booming. He spent a lot of time in the books, and he did well. They married him. They absolutely loved it. After France, we returned to Fort Smith, then back to Dermot, Arkansas. Foy took the National Merit Scholarship test, as many people did back in those days, and he came out in the upper 1 percentile of the entire nation. There was mention of him being a little bright. Well, yes, and I lived in the shadow of all that. I always had the dunce cap on. But Foy was very bright, and he chose to go to Tulane University in New Orleans, and went there. And his last year, he decided he was frustrated, and he moved up to Arkansas and graduated from Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. He then went to near Stuttgart, Arkansas as a teacher, and along came this beautiful young baby, and she's sitting right there between her husband and Spencer, Mary Lois. Then along comes Ellen, and she's in here somewhere. She's back there, this gorgeous young lady back there with all these lovely young ladies and husbands, and her husband behind. They're all here. It's good to have family. I don't know where all of our family is in here, but there's a lot of us. And it's glad we see each other once every blue moon. Foy divorced and remarried to this lovely young lady sitting here on the front row, Gloria. What a precious person. Thank you for taking care of our beloved Foy so long. And you too, John. Thank you. Foy became mortally ill, and they moved to California. The last correspondence that I had from my brother, we had emailed back and forth. And this just broke my heart in a way. He said, "I'm in a downward spiral." And I answered him back, I said, "Brother, reach out and grab that hand that's reaching out toward you." Whether he ever did or not, I don't know. He knows because he's somewhere. And we all loved him to death. I know that. And we're all, I now am reaching out in love toward him and all as well.
I'd now like to invite forward Janet and Robin Mulder.
Hello. Janet and Robin Mulder. We live on Bermuda Avenue in the Homewood Division where Foy and Gloria lived. So became neighbors with them. We moved in and met them at a Homewood Association party. Anyway, we became close. I became close to Gloria. She ended up in my branches meeting, branches group of this church. So I really liked her a lot. Got close to her, and after Foy was diagnosed with dementia, Gloria was going out of town, and it was the summer of 2016. And as you know, it started raining. And we had told Foy, if it rains too much or if something happens, come to our house. And so in the middle of the night on, I think it was August 13th, on Friday night, there's a knock at the door, and Robin answers it, and it's Foy, and he says, there's water in my house. So the next day, we all three found our way to get to Gloria's house because it was flooded, a lot of streets. And we took the canoe with us, and Robin and Foy got stuff out of their house and floated the canoe back to the street that would be closest to ours. One of the things that he brought that I grew to love was a Keurig. That was one of his precious objects. On June 27th of the year 2017, we unexpectedly lost our son, Lucas, 25 years old. Foy wrote this poem for him within a matter of days. The Loss of a Child by Foy Lowe. I have no rescue canoe, my friend. What you seek is beyond the reach of any vessel which can be manned. We face not a lake, but a sea, one as deep and wide as the end of limits. Your child has fled beyond that sea. His pain is gone, left behind, with you, with those who loved him, who needed him in his troubled self. I have no canoe at all, none whatsoever, unlike the one you had when I was in need. I have a shoulder, but no receptacle for your invisible tears, and no forceps to extract even a splinter of your anguish. All I can offer through high, thick walls is some semblance of empathy at losing something precious, something irreplaceably precious. So I'm going to say thank you to Foy for putting into words something that I can read at a later date and still remember him and my son. Thank you, Foy.
"3 Days with Foy." When Foy and Gloria moved from Baton Rouge to Southern California a few years ago, I was part of the caravan that made the journey. I was able to spend 3 whole days with Foy, just the two of us, sitting in a rental truck with a windshield full of scenery and a continuous conversation with Foy. We reviewed the state of the world. Terrible. But better than it may have been in the past, maybe, for some things. How would we fix it if we actually decided to try? Were UFOs real? What was the future going to be like? Neither of us predicted COVID. We did consider Ebola, but ruled out zombies. Foy was always one of my favorite people to have these kind of conversations with. His wit, humor, and intellect were magnetic to me. It wasn't that we agreed on everything, but that his ideas were thought through and unique, a somewhat rare combination. Even more important, he listened to and thought about what you said. He might not agree with it, but his replies were worth listening to. It would even be worth driving across Texas to be able to spend another day in conversation with him.
I'd like to now invite Spencer Snowman forward.
Hello, everyone. For those who I haven't met yet, my name is Spencer. I'm one of Granddaddy's children, or grandchildren. And when he found out that I was going to the same school as he did for undergrad, he wrote me a letter with some words of wisdom, and I wanted to share that with y'all up here. Sorry. Dear Spencer, yes, I graduated from Tulane Law School. Yes, those times were much different. Yes, I wanted to tell you some things which may for you be irrelevant or redundant. Before I went to law school, I had spent 3 years undergraduate at Tulane in the seductive city of New Orleans. I went on an academic scholarship, having been a good student based in part of my 7th grade in La Rochelle, France, where in a small class my teacher was a PhD from New York City, and completing texts and workbooks, as well as correcting errors, was essential. My first year at Tulane, I lived in a dorm where I had a roommate. I did well, making the dean's list, not socializing, fearful of failure. I had had Latin in high school, so first year Latin was not so bad. Further, in high school, I had run out of math courses, so I went through a college algebra book I got from the library. Accordingly, I did well on my SAT, and I was put in an advanced calculus class where proofs were the essence of the topic, without having had any calculus. 2, I had had high school chemistry, so first year chemistry was not overwhelming. The second year was different, much different. I egotistically overloaded my buggy, contrary to instructions from a guy who trained me in delivering products arriving at Dermot train station. Bad mistake. I took 20 hours. Instead of 2D chemistry, I took 3D year organic. Instead of 2D year Latin, I took 3rd year to fit it into my schedule. I took higher level math courses, and I moved to a dorm where I lived in a sort of suite in which 8 guys shared a common bathroom between sides of the building. I socialized, pizza and beer at a local establishment, talking jam sessions, trips to the French Quarter. My grades fell to all B's and C's. New Orleans is indeed seductive, as is comradeship and fun. The 3rd year was a catastrophe. I took fewer classes, most of which I don't recall, but one of them was differential equations, which required knowledge of calculations, of which I was totally ignorant. I don't understand the first page of the small textbooks. I got F's and D's in my courses. I was summoned to the dean by the teacher of differential equations. We made a deal that I would attend class or else. I was depressed, you might say. About 10 p.m. on most days, I took a bus called the Ferret Jet to downtown in the Quarter, where I listened to music and to jam sessions played by French Quarter musicians who met in the show bar after their jobs. That year was the end of my undergraduate career at Tulane. Thereafter, I went to a college my brother Charles was attending in Arkansas, Ouachita Baptist College, where I did fine and graduated. Afterwards, I taught a year in an Arkansas high school. Your mother was born there. I took another test and was admitted to law school, not enjoying teaching the kids who knew their mundane future and were indifferent. The lesson I should have learned and known was that the maxim, don't overload your buggy. I, after all, was merely human. I had to eat, I had to eliminate, I had to sleep, I had to clean myself. All like everybody else, even though a person is central to his own existence and looks at the world through his own eyes, it is important to realize that he is not central or special in the grand extent of the world, much less the universe. Of course, that realization must be balanced with the contrary. One is special and central in his own life. Recognition of that contradiction and earnest effort in spite of setbacks leads most likely to progress, if not success. While you might want to keep this little memo and read it between semesters, much of it, as I have said, may be far out of date, irrelevant, immaterial, trivial, useless, redundant, passé, whatever. Still, there are universal lessons. Keep a balance and don't overload your buggy. Thank you, Granddaddy.
I invite us all to rise in body or in spirit to sing our next hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Now I would like to invite us into the spirit of prayer, meditation, if you will. Spirit of life, love, God. As we have heard of the many blessings, joy, and a few challenges that Foy Lavelle Lowe Jr. has gifted and left us with, Great Spirit, continue to be with Gloria, all of his family and friends, as they engage their individual and communal grieving processes. Although Foy's body tired, his spirit, his smiles, his hats, him being himself for as long as he could, lives on. May we draw strength in the many memories shared of him, and may we be bold in our efforts to live out his and our own legacies. Ashe, blessed be, may it be so, and amen. Friends and family, as we have heard, Foy lived an amazing and complex, fun-filled, witty, joyful life. He touched so many in deep, profound, and lasting ways. Even still, the realities of life and the impacts of frontotemporal degeneration dementia, and ALS, brought this being filled with so much life to its end. As Foy's body was put through the fires of cremation, the family wanted to ensure that some of his remains be shared in several sacred spots of his life. In just a few moments, I will invite Gloria forward to share some of those remains with this mango tree. Other of his ashes will be spread out in our Peace Stones garden, and some will be carried to La Rochelle, France, the city he loved, by his daughters, Mary Lois Snowman and Ellen Womack. After the benediction, in just a few minutes, we will begin the committal ritual of spreading some of Foy's ashes. We have a dedicated peace garden just outside where other members of this church have also decided to have some of their ashes spread here as well. Today, Gloria again will spread some of the ashes here. Then we will carry and march the remains out to the Peace Garden, and a few select family members will be invited to take some of Foy's ashes using our sacred spoon to spread ashes into our Peace Stones garden. Others will be invited to join us outside if you're willing and able, ever so briefly, because it is 90+ degrees, to bear witness to the ritual of saying goodbye. For those who are willing and able to join us outside for a short committal ritual, please rise again to join us in singing our closing hymn, How Can I Keep From Singing? You may be seated. Our benediction. Gloria, family, friends, although Foy's physical presence has left this realm, and some of his ashes will soon be spread here in this mango tree, planted as he wished, his spirit and his zest for life shall long remain. So what I would like to do now is to invite Gloria forward to share a few sacred spoons of Foy's remains into the soil of this mango tree. Let us hold fast to his loving, curious, independent spirit always. As Gloria shares a few of his remains, from this urn, I will read his poem, Mango. Life is strange, but not very. Ask anyone in the cemetery. For you're here and then kaboom, you've met your doom, and you go on to make some room. Well, when I'm boxed and lowered down, give me one last chance to play the clown. Plant me under a mango tree in a land that's warmed by the sun. Plant me under a mango tree, or a grove would be better than one. Plant me under a mango tree with wine and music and fun. Oh, plant me under a mango tree, right there under a mango tree, just for a horrible pun. Man go, man go, man go to the tree. Man go, man go, man go to, man be the tree. Let me read that again. Man go, man go, man go be the tree. In a few moments, I would like to invite Robin and Janet forward to help us walk the urn out to the Peace Gardens as we head out, those who are willing and able, to the Peace Stones Garden to share more of his ashes. Continue to celebrate and remember the life and spirit of Foy, the spirit of love. A love that lasts for as long as someone remembers and shares his stories. After the committal, please feel free to gather in the kitchen area just outside those doors and to the left for some light refreshments for our sorter reception, with the larger reception to follow at Runnymede at 3:45 p.m. Please, please, please pay attention to the parking instructions. Again, please carry Foy's love and hope with you always. Blessed be, so it may be so, and amen. Can we have this?